Welcome to this session where we will be discussing about the cell and its components. In this session, I will try to introduce to the concept of a cell. What is a cell? What is its importance? And few interesting aspects of cell, like cell theory. And then later on, in the next session to follow, we will discuss about the cell organelles, the types of cell which is found in different organisms, and their importance. So let's start with the basic fundamental aspect of the cell. Now, as usual, before getting into the chapter, I would definitely like to know a question that always comes to my mind when I start discussing about cell, and that is, why cell is considered as the basic structural and functional unit of living organisms. Why? Some of you may answer immediately right now, but let's keep it till the end of this session, where you will definitely get an idea why it is considered so. Right? So, cell is there in all the living organisms. It might be in a different form, but it is there in all living organisms. Be it a unicellular organism, be it a multicellular organism, cells are there. Okay? And interestingly, life of all organisms start with or from a single cell. You can name it as a zygote, or you can name it as a spore, or you can name it anything. So all starts with a single cell. Let it be a zygote. Let it be a seed. So what happens is that from this zygote, cells continuously divide, then they arrange themselves in a specific way, then they differentiate if it is a multicellular organism and become an organism, isn't it? But if this process was not there, then definitely all the organisms would have been same, isn't it? But we are not going to discuss on that. What we are keen on to know is that when it is developing from a zygote to a complete organism, definitely the complete organisms or the cells are multicellular organisms. A single cell, it is multicellular. So all the genetic information of this multicellular organism will be the same as the zygote, isn't it? Will be the same as the zygote. Another aspect, if you look at, zygote has the ability, zygote has the ability to become a complete organism. So zygote is totally potential or totipotent. It is 100%, it has 100% potential to become an organism. So it is totipotent, total potential, okay, to produce a new individual. So what I mean to say is that the cell as a single structure can be an individual, cell as a multicellular structure can be an individual, but all these happen or originate from a single cell. Then what is a cell? Let's try to understand that. There are many scientists who looked at these since the beginning, but it is in the year 1665 a scientist named Robert Hooke. In some books E might be there, in some books E may not be there. As in your textbook there is no E in the spelling of Hooke. So it is Robert Hooke, an English scientist. Who is an English scientist? Since you are studying English, you are English scientist and you are studying science? No, person who belongs to England, English scientist. So what he did is that he looked at a cork or sections of cork. You know where this cork used? It is used as cap in your chemistry lab. You might have seen there used to cover the bottles. It is used in many of the alcohol industry to cover the bottles as well. It is used in your shuttlecock, the base of shuttlecock. That's also a cork. So he took slices of this and observed under a microscope, hand-made microscope, and found that it has got compartments, structures like this in large number. Okay, structures like this are generally seen. So he seen them as compartments, closed compartments. That's why he named it as cell. He named it as cell because they are like the cells of a jail, closed compartments. And they are plenty in number. Okay, so they have walls. Since it is a plant cell, so it has got walls and there is space which is enclosed in that. Okay. Later in 1831, a gentleman named Robert Brown, okay, discovered the nucleus of the cell. Discovered the nucleus of the cell. And later on, people started looking at cell, and then they concluded that cell is a structural and functional unit of all living organisms. Why? Because each cell has the ability to absorb food, process it, and use it. One has the ability to divide and arrange to become different organisms, different structures, different organisms or structures. Okay, what they do, they take the nutrients, they process it and convert that into energy, isn't it? They carry out special functions and reproduce. They divide or reproduce. And even more amazing is that each cell stores its own set of instructions in the form of genetic material to carry out such activities. So on its own, if you look at cell, it has got its own stability, and cell can survive when it is taken outside the body. It can survive if it is given all the necessary medium. Okay, so when we say that it is the structural and functional unit, let's try to define it, or let's try to find out. It's not just that we will believe in on its own. Let's find out. And by the end of that, you will have 3 statements which talks about all these aspects, and those 3 statements are the cell theory, or become the cell theory. So before going into cell theory, let's look at these pictures, what is shown here. This gentleman and this gentleman, obviously, can you identify? Yes, this gentleman is your Robert Hooke, and this gentleman is Robert Brown. Okay, and what you can see is the microscope that is being used by Hooke in 1670s. Okay, so let's now get into this cell theory. What is a theory, by the way? A theory is something which has been hypothesized and then put into action and tested, and then a statement is issued. That is becoming a theory. So cell theory was put forward in 1838 by 2 scientists initially, then become 3 scientists. We will talk about that later. So these 2 scientists are Sleden and Swami. Now pronunciation, it all depends on you, because spelling is what is more important. You can pronounce any way you like. So these 2 scientists were Matthias Sleden and Theodor Swami. Matthias Sleden is a German scientist, a German botanist, and Swan, Theodor Swan is a British zoologist. Okay, one is plant science, one is animal science, and how it is helpful. What Sleden found was that all plant parts are made up of cells. All plants are made of cells. Subsequently, what Swan found out was that all animals are composed of cells. All animals are composed of cells. Okay. So when they found out this one, they jointly stated that cell is the structural unit of living organisms. So first part of the statement is found out, structural unit. Okay. And also they found out that functional aspect of an organism is the resultant of the functions carried out by the cell. That means if I raise my hand like this is because the skeletal framework, that is the bone, the muscles, the blood vessels, the nerves, all are working together. And what is these tissues are made up of? The cell. So individually each muscle cell, like the sarcomere or the unit of the muscle, it starts working, the cell starts working. So there are many cells which work together, and because of that I can raise my hand, wave my hand. So it is the cell which has carried out the function, and all the resultant work of all these cells together become the action of the hand or the organ. So cell is also the basic functional unit of living organism. Cell is the functional unit of living organism. So these are the two statements which are first given by these two scientists, and they proposed this cell theory jointly. The cell theory was proposed jointly by them, that all living organisms are made up of cells and their products, and cell is a structural and functional unit of organism. Okay. But this theory did not explain how new cells were formed. So in 1855, which is written here 1858, another scientist named Rudolf Virchow, however you want to pronounce, he first explained that new cells arise through cell division of pre-existing cells. New cells arise through cell division of pre-existing cells. Arise from pre-existing cells. So this becomes the third point of the cell theory, that cell arise or cells are formed from pre-existing cells. So in its final shape, the cell theory looks like this. And this you can see the picture before I go there. Leon Hooke had made handheld microscope, first looked at many of the cells, that is blood cells, then different types of cells. So he discovered single cell organisms, he called them animalcule. Then he also looked at blood cells from fish, bird, frog, human, and that's how we come to know that all organisms are made up of cells. So you can look at these pictures of gentleman who has contributed to cell theory. So in its present shape, the cell theory states like this, that all organisms are made up of cells and their products. Okay. Second point is cell is the structural and functional unit of organisms. And third one is that new cells arise from pre-existing cells. Okay. So these are the points of cell theory, which is very, very important for exam point of view, and I hope you have understood this explanation. Thank you.